Well, Courtenay Heading is really joining us in the studio, one of our regular contributors. To say you've always got a bee in your bonnet would be an understatement. He has passion, this man. And HPV vaccine debate.
Yep.
First of all, HPV is?
Human papillomavirus,
And
said by some to cause cervical cancer.
And that's your point. You're anti this completely. And well, it's a long story, and I know you've got an event coming up, which is where we're hanging this thing on. Yeah. But let's start from the nearly beginning, anyway.
Near the beginning.
Explain what it is.
Yeah.
Thalidomide, if I say that word, it was almost the same sort of catchment thing for that generation, right?
Yes, these are serious issues.
In your view?
Yeah, in my view.
View.
These are serious issues. So I wouldn't say I've got a bee in my bonnet. I've probably been stung by 100 wasps, because when I look at each of the vaccines and ask for fully informed consent and full access to the data, and understanding how regulatory issues behind the scenes don't allow debate, I'm asking for that on the island. So the event I've got coming up on Monday the 3rd of December at the Manx Museum is by a world-leading expert on aluminium, and that's a key part of the adjuvant, which is put in a vaccine to stimulate the immune system. But I think there's issues around that. So that's on the 3rd of December at Manx Museum, and then 7:30 in the evening. And then on the next day, Tuesday the 4th of December, I'm showing a copy of Vaxxed, a film about vaccination. We'll have Sherry Tenpenny here, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, who is forming a vaccine university at the moment. So this is about education. But the heart of all this is around informed consent and the unwillingness of both Department of Health and Social Care, and specifically Public Health, to debate why we can't give the patient information leaflet to young girls and soon-to-be boys before they're vaccinated, so they can see the expected effects. These are not adverse effects, these are expected effects in some people. We need to change the language.
Okay. Take me through, when do people get this vaccination? What's it for, or meant to keep?
What it's for, it's need to go back slightly. Richard Halverson looked at all the major vaccines. He wrote the book Vaccines, A Parent's Guide, and he said that cervical cancer is the 20 most likely vaccine, or perhaps least likely. 19 other cancers you can get before cervical cancer occurring in women. So the vaccine is given around the world, two vaccines. One is by Merck, which is Gardasil or Gardasil 9, the latest one, or Cervarix by GSK, GlaxoSmithKline as well. It's given to young girls pre-sexual exposure, pre-sexual intercourse, and is expected to protect them for, in any cases, up to 30, 40 years. The average age is often in the 50s and 60s of cervical cancer. And the vaccine is supposed to prevent these cancers, but it's never been shown in a clinical trial to prevent cancer. That's the key issue. So it might prevent CIN, so these CIN3 lesions that might lead to cancer in some predisposed women. But when you look at recent studies from the University of Sheffield, you see that the types of strain, along with the adjuvant that they're injecting into girls, aren't shown when you actually look at the population. So you look at the work of Dr. Vanessa Herndon, and she shows that types 16 and 18 are extremely rare occurring in girls given this vaccine. So not only was the vaccine never shown to prevent cancer, the types of strain in that vaccine don't occur regularly, and worse than that, the trial never used an inert placebo, and the basis of all clinical trials is an inert comparator. But it should be a genuine placebo, not a comparator as in aluminium against aluminium, because you hide the harms.
This is going on worldwide. It's not just the Isle of Man, right? So why is not everybody else jumping up and down? I mean,
well, they are, but they might be deplatformed on YouTube, and we'll come on to that. So if you look at Japan, which is the biggest and the first to really, as a nation, say this is a problem, they've got 127 million people. They withdrew official support for HPV vaccine in June 2013 after a 3-month trial, which was stopped early. They stopped it because there were about 2,000 girls harmed, and many of those cases are going through legal courts in Tokyo. So that is ongoing. So a country of 127 million people decided not to progress, and the harms are being seen post-HPV vaccination in Colombia, Spain, Italy, France, UK, Isle of Man, Ireland, America. So this goes on around the world, and Denmark. I met some of the girls who'd been harmed from Denmark at a conference I spoke at in Ireland in April. And this girl, Kessie Ling, she was on the original trial 15 years ago because her grandmother died of cervical cancer. She believed that HPV may cause it. Her grandmother died of it. She wanted to help humanity. But unfortunately, Kessie got very ill, and that is a story replicated 15 years on by many, many girls, and particularly even on the Isle of Man, where you have heavy periods, disruption, and girls at schools on the island all being off school at the same time, all post HPV vaccine. And when people hear this, the teachers, which is the bedrock of informed consent and seeing how their students, their charges change over time, you can see this and have a comparator. And it's that anecdotal, it's that purely coincidence that I want to look at more thoroughly.
Okay. You've got graphs, you've got things that, where's your graphs? Just get to that one now, because this, I mean, I have to say, if anyone has other opinions, we're delighted to give you airtime as well, because obviously you got that spike one and
the spike one, that one.
I mean, what is this showing exactly?
That's UK freedom of information. Your finger is nearly over the yellow card report, but that and there's a note we have to hand out with it saying this is purely anecdotal, there's no correlation, there's no cause, it's accident. So this is all the vaccines we've ever been given, from rabies, typhoid, rotavirus, HPV, MMR, hepatitis, meningitis. It's a whole list now that when we were young we didn't have. So you're having kids having 30, 40, 50 doses of different vaccines, and we had perhaps 3 to 5. So that spike shows perhaps about an 8-fold increase, maybe 10-fold increase compared with any other adverse effects reported under the yellow card system.
Adverse, I mean dangerous adverse?
These are
life-changing adverse?
Some of these are deaths and some of these are then described as anecdotal, but we think perhaps only 1 in 100 of these is ever reported. Everyone will say it's between 10% and 1%, so 90% or to 99% is never reported. If you tried as a doctor to report a vaccine adverse effect, you'd be drummed out the brownies. You would literally, we had the event last week, the 14th of August, I couldn't get a GP, anyone available, 1 or 2 were on holiday, but the vast majority declined, didn't answer, and in some cases said, no, we will not debate with you. So we had, fortunately, a retired GP who was in the audience, and when I can get that film shown, 1 hour 40 minutes worth, you'll hear a retired GP with some interesting views on vaccines and MMR and other areas of why we even vaccinate for mumps. So these are not my words. All I do is assemble a team on a sheepdog, but we get people in to discuss and say, no, we know how you grow healthy sheep. It's as simple as that. But we're not allowing that scientific alternative view at airtime.
You want people to just have more kind of understanding, or are you actually saying it shouldn't be given at all?
No, my view is that I've ended up in a strange place by listening to people who conducted the original trials. I've met them in Greece, met people in Ireland, met them in the UK, met them here. And every time you actually say, let's debate the science, let's not name call, let's not say who's the expert, let's listen to the person who becomes a patient after they're injected. And the people that are becoming unwell are the young girls, and they want to roll this out here to boys. So when you listen to them, and on the debate on the 3rd of December, I've just been with a young girl here, she's going to give us the young person's viewpoint. She's willing to be on a panel with Dr. Chris Exley, and Sherry Tempany will be here, and other protein experts. These are world-renowned figures that will speak, but the patient voice is so important, because at school I've asked to meet on school premises. I've been told I can't yesterday, so we will find premises where we're not deplatformed.
Sorry, you're not allowed because
no, I can't
they don't like what you're saying, or
who knows? But what I want to do is to bring out the patient information leaflet. So my Jerby Wellness blog yesterday, I put up Gardasil 9 as the patient information leaflet. I'm going to have several thousand pages of the patient information leaflet printed out. Each one's a few pages. I'm going to give them free to girls and boys before they have the vaccine, and just say this should be a human right enshrined in a place that believes in freedom to flourish. We should believe in freedom to speak. So how can you have informed consent and not look at the dangers of anything unless you don't look at the small print?
Can you take us to this one?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I had this in a slide I did last week when I presented in legislative buildings, and we had a number of MHKs and MLCs there. Someone keeps saying it's going to come along and drop down in terms of cervical cancer statistics very soon, any day now. But when we look at UK, and this is from a group Time for Action, where some of the mothers and girls I met in Parliament last year in October, and they're saying, where is the evidence that it actually does prevent this? So we've had this a decade now. It went through clinical trials that never proved effectiveness against cancer. And the placebo is the major issue, because you compare a poison with a poison and then you'll say it's the same as placebo. Well, if you poison the water with lead, you don't have a truly pure water to compare people against. It's the same in a trial.
Okay, you're going to scare some people here, aren't you?
I've scared the horses. I've been told I'm dangerous. I've been told I'll create fear. I've been told I would caution you against. Effectively been told I can't discuss this with schools. I've had headmasters who do get back to me, 1 or 2, say we do all this through public health. But I only want to debate, and we should have that on camera, not in camera. So publicly debate. because this is too serious. When you see the films, 3 films, I urge anyone whilst they can still see them, go onto YouTube and put in sacrificial virgins.
You make it sound like you got people pulling things behind your back, and there's some sort of big brother going on.
I don't know.
You're saying some of your videos have come down.
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, only 2 days ago, I put up the video of 1 hour and 43 minutes. I sent that out to 400 people. A number have come back to me, including Helen Labato, who wrote that book. Right. So she came from Australia and said, I can't see your video, Courtenay. She only wrote Gardasil, fast-tracked and flawed. So when Helen wrote that, I emailed her through my lawyer friend, and got an email back very quickly. She couldn't access my video in Australia, but they stopped Sherry Tenpenny from appearing there. They deplatformed her. So when you look at where the vaccine came to pass, maybe it's Australia. When you look at the issues around Sherry Tenpenny in America not being able to access my video, and people here, former retired MLCs, current MHKs, and friends and brothers and others.
You're making it sound like there's...
It's an accident. It's anecdotal. No, it's purely coincidental that you can't access my video. So Vimeo exists, and we'll have to unpassword it and send it out.
Great talk. I mean, there's loads more. And this other book just reminds...
Oh, yeah, no, that's one. This is what you should do before you allow anyone to puncture the skin of a loved one. This is being given to GPs here who didn't know this. You know, vets don't know what's in a vaccine. Vets do not know. You ask them, live or tenured. So, Richard Halverson, he only references 600 papers there. He talks about MMR and the issues around what I call the Galileo people of this world. So Richard Halverson is a British GP. What's important? He offers you single measles, mumps or rubella if you want them in Manchester, Baby Jabs Clinic, or in London. Here we don't, and they don't in the UK because they say, oh no, we wouldn't get compliance. This fake science, to me, of herd immunity, it comes in naturally. So he has outlined that. Right. People should buy that book. If they just read one thing, buy it, ignore it, maybe he's got a point.
One more time for your event.
2 events, 7:30 Manx Museum the 3rd of December for Dr. Chris Exley, Mr. Aluminium. He's autopsied 100 autistic brains and is a world-class researcher. And then the next day, probably around about 10 o'clock, we're just deciding at Mountain View Innovation Centre to show Vaxxed and to meet Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. And
if we could set up a debate here in the studio, who would you have sitting here in the opposite chair from government, I'm guessing?
In a way, it's not opposite. We want the same informed consent. I would love public health.
Anyone, just someone from public health to debate this?
I get on with them. We shouldn't lock horns. We're trying to go forward in free speech, not in compelled speech.
Invitations out there. Let's see what happens.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.